Hello, Kirsteen, and welcome to the podcast. So, as you know from our chats before, the aim here is to provide useful information to Airbnb hosts and those looking to invest in short stay accommodation derived from the experience of successful people in the industry like yourself. So I know you've been in the industry for a while, and you're running a portfolio of, I think, around 10 properties successfully in the Cotswolds. So we're really looking forward to hearing what you've got to say.
Thanks, Gareth. Hello.
So, as always on the podcast, we start with your funniest guest story.
Okay, well, I had to sort of dig deep here, really, but probably for us, obviously being in the Cotswolds, Cheltenham races always brings a few stories. So I suppose last 2 years ago, we had a lovely guest, won't give names, and she checked into our house, but I had a call at about 11 o'clock at night, and you can imagine what she's done. She's locked herself out, or she's left her guest on the doorstep, locked herself out, and asked for me for help, really. Stranded in the middle of the Cotswold countryside, not sure where she was, but transpired to be fairly near a well-known jockey's house.
Yes.
So yeah, that's probably, no names mentioned, but yeah, an interesting one, that's for sure.
Wow. I imagine she'd had a good day.
She'd had a very good day, yeah, I think so. It's hard to pinpoint your location when there's no redeeming landmarked features other than stone walls and trees around, is there, to pick up where you are?
That's it. And I imagine she wasn't from the Cotswolds or anywhere near.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Good stuff. So yeah, in terms of background on your company, so it's Cotswold Cohost, and you manage properties on behalf of Airbnb investors. So just a bit of background on the company and how you guys got started.
Yeah, so I suppose it really started with my background. So I was a HR manager, worked for some large retailers. Then we had 3 children very quickly together, and decided that actually I didn't kind of want to do the full-time thing, really wanted to be at home with the children. So set up a business called Olive in a Bus. Yeah, we sold gin and olives at festivals such as Glastonbury, and kind of built up from local little stuff and built our way up into VIP areas, Wilderness, Glastonbury. And we did a little promotional video with VW, if you want a bit of a laugh, on YouTube. Yeah. And then whilst we were away at weekends, I think it was kind of the start of the Airbnb growth really in the UK. Realised that our house was sort of sitting empty, had always had a passion for renovating, so we thought, let's give it a go. And then I suppose connecting back all the dots, I'd done a degree in tourism and travel, and just rekindled my passion really, I think, for making guests happy, the property side of things, and running that whole experience. So did that ourselves for a few years, really got to understand the market and what makes a good host, what do you need, learn all the different elements to it. And then the concept was born really, I suppose, pre-pandemic, so 2 years before, so started getting clients. And then obviously we are now here with 13 properties and looking to expand, further over the next few years.
Fantastic. So obviously it can be quite, property management, I think, can be quite an intense industry to work in. So what does a normal business day look like for you in terms of management?
Very varied. Obviously, most of the activities that we've delegated, obviously housekeeping, laundry, we have a maintenance arm now as well, but overall still operationally it all falls under my remit, so it's a very varied day. So you can be dealing with guests, strategy, marketing, so yeah, it's just so diverse, I think, really. With the size of company, a small company, you have to have lots of different hats on, don't you? So I think it's very varied, busy, long hours, and yeah, exciting though.
That kind of leads into the next question in terms of your top tip for Airbnb hosts, I guess, because you said your days are quite varied, but also long and maybe quite intense in terms of the volume of work that you've got on. So I guess, I don't know if that actually leads into your top tip for Airbnb hosts, but do you have any sort of shortcuts that you use that you would recommend to people getting into the industry? Like, what would be the sort of the first piece of software or any kind of tools that you would use to get your job done a little bit better?
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, realistically, if you're going to go into the market, know your local market first, get your property right and get the local market. I think, and don't take on everything. So do think about what you can outsource and maintain your standards as well. So look at what things you can with your laundry and your housekeeping if you can. And then I think top tip from my perspective really would be then thinking about the guest experience. So for, you know, none of this works unless they're having a good time and everything's clean and tidy from what they need. So communication is obviously really key. And I think use technology to help you embrace that. So yeah, definitely use a PMS system if you've got a couple of properties. Get to grips with your social media, be able to be responsive and communicative with your guests and your owners equally, and it's real time, so you could use technology wherever you can to enhance that. We hope to build our own sort of platform in the future. We've got some ideas around how we can make a lot of the PMS systems out there are great for guests, but perhaps not so good for owners, I think. So being an owner myself, I think that's a real big area that we'd like to kind of look at and are looking at with our technology and how we can use that better with our guests and our owners as well.
Interesting. And in terms of solutions that are already on the market, so you said you're potentially looking at doing your own sort of platform or something like that.
Yeah.
Is there like any top pieces of software, maybe even just like a WhatsApp, or like what do you use for example, for like guest communications and to make that process easier?
We use Guesty, and yeah, we're pretty happy with that. I think like any solution, when you've been using it for a while, you start to think, well, what would I want differently? And if I did it bespokely, how would we do it? But again, it's very guest focused. It interfaces with all the platforms, which is great. But again, I just think there's this element of the owner part that just, it's not there as much as I would like it at the moment, or that I found really. So yeah.
And then, so how do you, when you use the technology, I mean, how does that interface with the guest experience? I mean, obviously there's the communications, but is there anything else that you find, you know, it really helps improve the guest experience from the tools that you're using?
Probably no, not necessarily a tool that's off the shelf. It's just stuff that we've adapted. So using online check-in guidebooks helps, I think. Photographs of where they need to go in terms of the communication. Some guests are very like to read, other guests are quite visual, some like a lot of information, other guests like not a lot. So you're trying to please the masses really, and just use the different tools. So we actually do use quite a few different ones so that they can kind of pick and choose which one they feel is best. So we replicate maybe the information to, you know, on a couple of different sources, but SMS and email, you know, some prefer text, short, quick, in, you know, modern, fast, and then others prefer really detailed, a bit slower. They can read it before they come, you know, they plan their trips before, 2 weeks before. Like a lot of information. Other people are like, right, it's the morning, I'm going, where do I need to go? If it's anything like myself, yeah, absolutely, like, right, where are we today, what time is it? So, yeah.
Brilliant. Have you had any sort of guests who haven't been able to use the technology and you've had to find like alternative ways to communicate with them?
Yes, mostly. I mean, most all get together with the grips of technology. I just don't particularly think I recommend too technical anything, you know, as well, you know, if it's too high tech. So we've got a couple of properties that have got quite high spec in terms of check-in, touch lock boxes, and that can sometimes cause us a bit of problems. Some people love it, other people are just like, I just want to switch the oven on, they don't want anything technological too much. So it is, yeah, there is a bit of a split there in terms, but you just have to market it, I think, at your guests, don't you, as well? So it's when it comes back to your, you know, how you've marketed that house for that guests, you know, as well. And we try and attract those type, or there's the traditional kind of guests that might want something more easy and less techy, I suppose.
Got you. Right. So actually certain properties would appeal to certain guests anyway.
Yeah.
So who your audience is going to be.
Yeah, so we try and push them towards that, and I've actually found that the marketing and communication with them tends to be more fast-paced, shorter, and then traditional properties do definitely demand a slower, more traditional method of communication.
So we were discussing this actually before we kind of went on air, but in terms of the state of the short-term rental market right now, obviously there's a lot of doom and gloom in the air in terms of the overall UK economy and probably global economy as well. I mean, how, in your opinion, is the state of the short-term rental market right now in the UK?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting time for the industry, isn't it? Obviously, everything that's going on. We're finding that nightly prices are kind of back to pre-COVID, like 2019. I think we've had a nice boom, but actually, in reality, they're leveling back out to where they were before. So I think, they were, for us, we definitely had an inflation the last 2 years where we were able to, the demand was there. I think prices are back to where they were 2019. Occupancy for us at the moment is still remaining consistent, so tracking where we would previously, so I'm still comfortable at the moment, but there is a bumpy road ahead. I think generally unique properties with USPs that are better than the average are going to, obviously the higher spec, the better that you have, are going to have a better chance of riding out the next couple of years and the economic fallout, really. We really try and work with our owners to identify what we can do to push their property and make it the best in the area. So and I think if you've got the best, then, and you're priced right, then you've got the best chance of riding out the next few years, haven't you?
Interesting. So effectively at the moment, we're not seeing any impact, but you're looking down the road and you're thinking, well, maybe next year might be a little bit tougher.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, I mean, feeding off that, I mean, would you say now is still a good time to invest, or looking to
I think it really depends on your financial position, doesn't it? If you're in it for the long term and you can afford to ride out the next few years, interest rates rising, a fall in house prices potentially over the next 2 years, then I think, don't do it. But I think if you're in it for the long term, 5 to 10 year investment, then, go for it. I wouldn't be doing it if it was a short-term investment that I was looking for, but longer term, I think we'll be fine.
And so obviously if people are looking then to get in for the longer term, I guess obviously short term, maybe looking to buy it and maybe flip the house, or rent short term and get rid of it to get the capital appreciation is not the best strategy. But if they are looking to invest longer term, then I mean, what would your top tips for people looking to invest in holiday let right now?
I hate to say it, but obviously location. But I would also say in brackets specification. In our experience, you ideally want both, don't you? That's the best. But actually, you've got to have one or the other, I think. If you're new to it, I think realistically, you need to take 1 to 2 years to reach its full potential as well. So you need to build your reputation. You've got to figure out what your market is, who your customers are. But I mean, yeah, top tips are obviously for me would be location, or specification. So we've got a couple of properties sort of similar sizes, and it's nice to just be able to compare how much that does have an impact on your your investment. But yeah, location or specification for me are the two things that that you need to have.
So do you find people will travel further away from a better location for a higher spec house, right? So
absolutely,
nice looking place, maybe, but in the middle of nowhere with no local facilities, people obviously go there because it's high spec. Maybe it's got swimming pool, all of those.
You've got to have hot tub, swimming pools, parking. All the extra things that think, okay, I'll offset that for being further out in not such a nice area. So yeah, definitely.
And in terms of the two, so if you had, for example, if you had to choose, so you said both, but if you had to choose between location, and maybe a higher spec place, in a less good location, what would you suggest is performing better for investors right now?
Yeah, I think location, you still can't. That is your number one, really, in terms of it. If I had to put my money on either one and it was down to two, it would probably be the location that would. But then you're going to pay the premium, so it depends on what your return is, isn't it, really? So, but location would be my first, really, in
Because that probably gets the better occupancy, so less risky, I imagine.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. But you can obviously get maybe perhaps the same if it's depending on the market. If you go a little bit further out, what you save in that house price, you might equally get your same nightly rate if you're careful. So in terms of investment, it's worth looking at.
Interesting. So you guys operate in the Cotswolds. Obviously, I mean, the Cotswolds probably does well in almost any market, I imagine, being obviously a nice area, probably attracts a lot of international holiday makers. But I mean, in terms of the average return for you guys across up and down markets, I mean, what would that be in the Cotswolds?
I mean, yeah, good location, depending on the spec, we'd like to see between 30 and 50 gross return.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, I think if you can get as best as you can, like I said before, get that location, get that good spec, get everything performing, get your right customer base in, market in the right places. Yeah, that's what we'd like to be, or what we are seeing for our sort of 3 beds.
Fantastic. Wow, that's really good return. And then, I mean, in terms of obviously with the Cotswolds, quite a big area. I mean, where would you suggest is the best area within that?
Oh, I need to say that. It's a difficult one. I mean, obviously, if you look at the traditional lets and the good locations, you're looking at Slaughters, Bourton, Moreton and Marsh kind of areas. But like I said, I mean, I quite like to see the same return, on a less traditional, but by upping the spec and maintaining that customer satisfaction. So yeah, I mean, obviously best regions are the north, but we're getting some good performance in the south side of the Cotswolds at the moment as well. It's a little bit less undiscovered, I suppose. And yeah, there's some good value properties out there, and quite international wise as well. That's quite popular with sort of the Dutch as well in that kind of area, the Netherlands. So yeah, we've seen sort of quite a good growth there as well.
You know why that would be? Why they're particularly interested in?
I think some of it's Highgrove, some of it's having to, I don't know why particularly, but yeah, they're enjoying sort of Highgrove, I suppose, at the moment as well. I can't link it back to particularly anything in terms of any feedback that we've had, but we've definitely got a nice little growth going on there. And I think it's, again, if we see that we're attracting those certain types of people, then we'll push on that area with our marketing and stuff like that as well to try and grow that. If we've seen a carrot there, we'll go for it, definitely.
I mean, in terms of, this isn't on our list, but in terms of the uplift that you try and get for your clients, I mean, what could a client expect if they were looking to invest in the area, and say they've been running it? You've obviously had clients who've probably been running the Airbnbs for a little while themselves, and then you kind of step in and take over. I mean, what sort of uplift can your clients expect?
In terms of percentage, case study wise, we've probably uplifted 20-30%
on top of what they were previously achieving.
Yep, on what they were previously achieving. Yep.
And do you achieve that through sort of price optimization or occupancy?
Everything. Yeah, absolutely, everything really. So obviously using a bit of dynamic pricing to get the best nightly price for them. It really does depend on we really kind of get into each property, and each property does vary massively. So I suppose we'll kind of apply the strategy that we think is best for that. It depends what they're getting. Have they been getting like 2 nightly rate, minimum 2 nights? What can we push that to longer stays? What's their nightly rate? If it's been flat across the year, can we obviously introduce dynamic pricing to try and get them the best nightly rate? So we kind of like have a bit of a suite of tools, I suppose, now, and experience that we draw on to really try and push that and work with the property. I mean, I've got another property where I've got 2 identical on them, and it's really interesting to see 2 apartments. So interesting to see, how the bookings and what you can do to the listings and the marketing to attract more with exactly the same property. So yeah, it's interesting.
So you're running them side by side, two flats. One run by the owner still, and one is
no, both run by us, but just applying different metrics to it. And there's a whole range of things you can do. From as small as photographs down to listings, keywords, pricing, and just running them next to each other and just see how we can flip occupancy and revenue and what that means. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, I'm from a marketing background, so we would tend to do that with client websites. So it's effectively A/B testing, right? So you're
Yeah,
kind of testing one strategy versus another,
yeah,
seeing which one's performing better, and then optimizing off the back of that. And I guess you guys have got a bank of learnings that you can draw on for clients, and then almost immediately apply that to their listings to up the performance.
I mean, we look at it like every Monday. So it's like, right, where do we go? What do we need to do? How can we move this one forward? Is this performing where we want it to? And then what can we apply? So yeah, and I think that's where the uplift comes for our clients, because we are able to be so reactive. Maybe some of the bigger agencies, it's just on, isn't it? And they're doing it for everybody, and you're not getting that specific market knowledge and detailed understanding of the property to make it get to the best occupancy and nightly rates you can.
Definitely, because you guys know your area better than anyone else, right? If it's a big agency based out of London, for example, I doubt they would know the area so well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, okay, so what we like to do is round off the podcast with your second funniest. But what's your second funniest guest?
I was going to say it was quite hard, actually. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, again, funny. I don't know if we had, but probably funniest guest request I suppose I went for was, would you believe, to bring a pet parrot? So we have some dog-friendly properties, but we've also had a couple of requests. Well, a request for a pet parrot to come. Probably needless to say, my next top tip for hosts would actually be don't accept parrots.
You accept it, or?
We did, and I wouldn't again. Yeah.
What did it do?
Just, you can't really toilet train a parrot, can you? Particularly.
Yeah, of course, yeah. There seems to be a lot of stuff around pets, actually. When we're talking to people, we had another host who had a hamster. So they actually brought a hamster, and then the hamster escaped and is still in Airbnb, staying for free, I think. So. Oh
no! Oh god, yeah. I think cats. We're getting a lot of requests for cats now these days as well, and it's
maybe just dogs.
Yeah, just keep dog friendly.
Yeah. Okay, Kirsteen. Well, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Gareth.
Yeah, some really useful insights there, hopefully, for people looking to invest in Airbnb properties. And we'll speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon. Thanks, Gareth. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.